Heart disease is the leading cause of death for men, women, and people of most racial and ethnic groups in the United States. One person dies every 33 seconds from cardiovascular disease. In 2022, 702,880 people died from heart disease. That is the equivalent of 1 in every 5 deaths in the U.S. Heart attacks are not limited to the elderly. They have become more common in people under the age of 40, and there has been a rise in the number of heart attacks in people in their 20s. What has changed that has contributed to the rise over the past several years? A more sedentary lifestyle in the young has contributed to the increased risk for cardiovascular disease and heart attacks. Conditions such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes are major contributors to the development of heart disease. More time in front of a computer screen and/or cell phone, eating more ultra-processed foods, vaping, and decreased physical activity, especially cardio, all contribute to the higher incidence of cardiovascular events in the younger population. Prevention is key in younger people. Scheduling an annual physical exam to include blood pressure checks, cholesterol screening, and blood sugar testing is key. Knowing and understanding family history helps identify risk factors that require monitoring. Lifestyle changes made early can greatly decrease the risk of heart disease. This includes regular physical activity, eating a more nutritious diet, managing stress, quitting smoking, and prioritizing sleep create a foundation for a better heart health. The earlier action is taken, the better.
My name is Lori, and I am a survivor of heart disease. My heart disease started at age 17. I was very young. But you see, I was born into a family with a history of heart disease with both my mom and my dad's side of the family. My two brothers also had heart disease. At 17, I would be diagnosed with extreme hypertension, which is high blood pressure. It was very high, so high at that visit, I was not able to leave until I took some medication right there to bring it down. Legally, they could not let me leave. The next day, I would go to an internist and I would begin a journey of taking high blood pressure medicine and trying to get it under control. But the problem was I was 17 and I really didn't understand what high blood pressure was and what it would mean for my life in the future. So basically, I just ignored it. I did not take the medication as directed, and I did that all through my 20s and into my early 30s. I went to the doctor. I was 34 years old. And at that visit, my blood pressure was very high. And again, I was not able to leave the office as the doctor legally could not let me leave because I was at a stroke level. I had to stay at his office for 3 hours in a room with medication taking through a patch and orally. And he talked to me and gave me a heart-to-heart on how dangerous it was not taking the blood pressure medicine and what I was doing to my heart and myself. And at age 34, I didn't want to have a severe stroke because I was way too young for that. I cried, I was upset, I was mad. Yes, he called me a liar when I told him I was taking the medicine, but I was a liar. So I left there with a whole change in attitude on taking the medication as directed. And so I thank that man for breaking me down over it. At age 43, I would experience my first heart attack. It was Easter morning, and I woke up, everything was just as normal. Except I was going into my bathroom and all of a sudden I was hit with extreme chest pain and pain that radiated through both arms, and I was nauseated and I started sweating. I knew that I was having a heart attack. I laid on the bed and I shut my eyes and I just prayed to God that it would stop and that I would live through this. I was in denial, and I didn't want to call 911. I didn't call 911 because it was Easter Sunday, and in my mind, I had a lot of things to do that day. So I thought, well, if I don't say anything, then nobody knows this. So after it passed, I got ready. I went to Mass and went to lunch and did all the things for Easter. The next day, I got up and I went to work. And I didn't say anything again. because it was payroll day and it was important that everybody got paid. And deep down inside, I knew that I would end up at the hospital and I really wanted my paycheck. And that may sound silly, but I did. So I processed payroll. I called my doctor's office and told them about the chest pain, and they said to go to the emergency room. So I left work and I drove myself home, and I changed clothes, again in denial. I changed clothes and I sat down and I watched Young and Restless. I was doing anything other than going to the hospital. Finally, I decided it was time to go, so I got in the car and I drove myself to the emergency room. The thing about it was, on the way to the emergency room, I smoked because I smoked cigarettes. So I thought, I'm going to smoke one more cigarette because probably when I go in the hospital, I won't be smoking anymore. As I walked in the door and I told them felt I was having a heart attack, things started happening very fast, and they asked me if I was a smoker. And I said, no, I quit. And they were like, well, when did you quit? And I said, I quit when I walked in the door a few minutes ago. And they were like, that's correct, you will be quitting. But it was very scary. On the blood test they instantly did to know that, yes, I was having a heart attack and I was not going to be leaving. And I was 43 years old, so I was very young. I would go through the night in the emergency room. The next day I would have a stress test, which showed complete blockage, almost 98% in my widowmaker. So at that point, they told me I would go in and see if we could do stents, and if the damage was too much, then we would have to do open heart surgery. I was lucky in that I got to do stents, and I had 5 stents placed in my heart, 3 in the widowmaker and 2 in the outside vessels. I would be released and go home, and I was totally in shock of how could this have ever have happened to me. I was too young, and I just felt so bad for the things that I had done to myself, for not trying to help myself. I was not smoking now. That in its own was a shock. Smoking is kind of a habit, so I didn't have that habit anymore. So consequently, I started eating a little bit more. So here comes gaining some weight. Now I'm seeing a cardiologist. I'm going there pretty much every week after this incident. And I knew that I didn't feel right. My heart felt good and I felt better, but I didn't feel good mentally. And I finally told my cardiologist, as he asked me if I felt I was having depression. And I finally admitted it, that I was, and that I needed some help. So luckily, I had a very proactive cardiologist who got me some help. We started medication and got myself turned around. I've always been an exerciser, even from high school, so I was already exercising. So I knew that I had to get back in that environment, but I was scared. It was like, what if something happens? Well, you just got to get out there and do it. So I went back to the gym, started working out, picked up my cardio even more, started teaching spin classes at the gym, and really engulfed myself in that world. So lost the weight, not smoking, cholesterol getting under control, things are good. I go along for 13 years, and then all of a sudden, here comes heart attack number 2. Again, very shocked. I had just started a new job, and 6 weeks into it, I was sitting training with someone, and I felt that chest pain, and it's a chest pain that you never forget. So back to the emergency room we go, and I would again go to the heart cath lab and was able to get stents again in my widowmaker. There was complete blockage in the widowmaker to about 98% again. So the doctor actually wanted to do open heart surgery, but I did not want to do open heart surgery as I was scared after starting a new job of only 6 weeks that I would be fired from the job if I had to do open heart because I would be out for a while. He didn't really agree with my decision, but I stood firm in it and we restented it and everything worked out okay with it. So now I'm 6 years from heart attack number 2 and feeling good, exercising, doing everything that you need to do because you have to make a lot of changes when this occurs. You have to do things proactive for your health. So when I think back at the age of 17 and what I didn't do, I can't look back at it with guilt anymore. I just have to look forward and know that there's things that I can do now to help maintain my fight in this disease because heart disease will never be over for me. It's a disease, it's not an illness. There's a difference. In a disease, it's forever. So I know that this journey is never ending. So I fight a good fight every day. Maybe it's not my best fight, but I'm always fighting heart disease. So I encourage anyone to, number one, know your family history. If you're young, ask your parents what your family history is with heart disease because it does make a difference. And the things that you can do as a young individual to be preventative to fight heart disease later in life. So I encourage you to know that. I encourage anyone, if you're taking medication for high blood pressure and that, take your medicine as directed. If you don't take it, it is not doing any good and you're only doing yourself damage to your heart. 3, I encourage anyone, if you are smoking or vaping, especially young people, do your best to stop. It does so much damage and it does so much damage to the vessels in your heart. And it only is leading to heart disease and a possible heart attack, which can take your life. So with that being said, I am very happy to be here. And I've been given 2 chances, so it's nice to start speaking about heart disease in the community and helping empower somebody else that maybe has this to know that you too can survive this as I have since age 17, and I'm now 63 years old. So it's been a long fight. But with that being said, I encourage you to love your heart and to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, it's hard to help yourself. So again, love your heart and love yourself. You're worth it. Much heart love. Thank you.
Here are some photos from some of my Heart Rock painting events that I've hosted in the community. I have participated in several events with the American Heart Association, but being named a Woman of Impact was by far my greatest honor. I started a community project 6 years ago called Your Heart Rocks. I had just attended a Go Red Luncheon for Women hosted by the American Heart Association, and I realized I had a story to share as a heart survivor. I started painting hearts on rocks and leaving them around the community for people to find. People loved them, and this project really began to grow. I started hosting Heart Rock painting events with different groups in the community where I've shared this Heart Rock love, and it's been such a wonderful experience meeting some great people. My most recent outing was with the families and patients at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital, and we had such a fun afternoon of Heart Rock love. Today, I'm with some high school students from Ravenwood High School who are helping share awareness to heart disease. So remember, love your heart, but also love yourself because your heart rocks. I'd like to introduce Dr. Scott, who specializes in rehab therapy, including working with individuals who have experienced heart events from heart disease.
My name is Dr. Ambrosia Scott, and I am a military brat, so I'm from a couple of places. But I went to high school here in Memphis at Ravenwood High School, graduated undergraduate from Jackson State, then moved on to the University of Tennessee Health Science Center here in Memphis with my physical therapy degree. I am the director of rehab services, and that encompasses all of the therapy of the outpatient, the cardiac rehab, and all of the therapies that are conducted on the inpatient side or the acute care side of the hospital.
What is the meaning of being treated as an outpatient?
So with outpatient therapy, what you're doing is once the patient has become stable, medically stable, as they transition either from a acute care stay in the hospital, or if they're in what they call a inpatient rehab facility, they're at a point to where they can go home. And so what they are typically doing is coming from the house or coming from a facility to us, an outpatient, to work with them on becoming even more independent so that they can go back and transition to their employment, they can transition back to what they were doing prior to their illness. Sometimes that's as simple as being able to dress themselves, being able to feed themselves and do those daily tasks like drive to and from the grocery store or to work.
Can you tell us the effects that energy drinks have on kids today?
It's more about the sugar. I think, one of the things that people fail to realize is really to look at is why they are tired and really address the issues there. A lot of times it is a lack of sleep. Are you getting the sleep you need? We go and we pop energy drinks first. And yeah, you get some energy and some boost, but it is a quick boost of energy and a big crash after it. And then you have all of the sodium that affects blood pressure, that affects the heart, that affects a lot of times the swelling that you get in your lower appendages, and then you have all the sugar. And one of the things that we have in this Memphis area, the top leading outside of cancer, is diabetes and heart disease. So those types of energy drinks, and then also not allowing your body to get the rest. Over time, you have what they call micro trauma that happens to your body. And it's not just physically. And a lot of times we think about it on orthopedic wise. I do stuff repetitively and now I've got pain in my joint or pain in my arm. But it happens to your body systemically. So over time, as you continue to abuse the body and you continue to not allow the body to rest and you put negative things into it, that micro trauma builds up and then you have a major trauma, which can lead to a major diagnosis like diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, all those types of things because of the things that you continuously do over time.
Dr. Scott, please share some advice on how to live a heart-healthy lifestyle.
Well, understanding your body, making sure that whatever you put in your body is good, continuous movement. And it doesn't have to always be exercise. A lot of times when we get patients into the therapy arena, they think hard physical exercise, but it is the continuous, it is the habitual, I would say, action that helps you in the long run. So even if you're walking 15 to 20 minutes, but you're doing it daily, you're going to do better than a person that comes in and they exercise once a week and they eat whatever they want the rest of the week. It is that continuous good habit that helps you sustain. So really understanding where you fit into that or seeking out.
What made you decide that you wanted to become a rehabilitation therapist?
Well, a couple of different things. I always wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to do something in the healthcare field. Initially, I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. But as I started playing sports and I had sustained injuries, I felt like I wanted to be a little bit closer to the sporting arena or on the side of rehab. And so then like I said, just getting injuries and seeing how important it was, how fun it was, and how important it was for me to return back to what I loved and how the individuals helped me return back to what I love. That's really what got me into it.
Tell us your advice for young people to be healthier today.
Move. I see a lot of, it's more, when I was growing up, and I won't date myself because I'm only 25, But when I was growing up, we spent a lot of times doing things outside. And even if we weren't outside necessarily, we were somewhere moving. We didn't sit, we didn't do the gaming. So we weren't in the house. And if we were in the house, we were cleaning the house. We were still doing active things. And so, or we were involved in sports, or we would go to summer camps. You don't see that a lot nowadays. You see, when you drive down the neighborhoods during the summer, you don't see kids out. They're inside, they're gaming, they're on their phones. And I always joke because necks and thumbs keep us in business as physical therapists, because that's all you see is the head down, the thumb, and they're moving their fingers across whatever platform they're using. But we didn't do all of that. And I think the generation before me, my parents, of course they didn't do all that. And you wonder, you get a lot of the baby boomers and a lot of the generation ahead of me that are still healthy and they're still active because they didn't sit around. They moved. They had to walk places. There was not always access to vehicles. So try to find ways to stay active. If you are on your devices and platforms, try to discover ways to eat healthy things and what you can do to stay active. Because it really is about the movement of the body. We get into this system of sitting and not moving. And as you age, there are going to be times to where you're not able to be as active as you want to be because you have the constraints of your job and your family. And so if you set the platform of a habit of being inactive as a child, you're not going to think about the fact when you become a successful professional or a successful parent that I need to move. It's going to be your normal to not move. And then as you age, there are changes that are going to occur in the body that you cannot control. And if your body is used to being sedentary and you're used to movement as being something that's a foreign language to you, now when your physician is telling you, you've got to change these habits, you got to do new things, it's going to be very difficult for you to do. So if you set the tone early when you're young to understand that movement is key, I need to be active, I need to put healthy things in my body, it's a habit. So that would be my advice.
Dr. Scott, can you tell us how a person's mental health affects their overall well-being?
Oh yeah. And I can give you an example. And it doesn't mean that you have a mental health issue, but mental health is not just, do I have a diagnosis of bipolar? Am I on the spectrum? Do I have ADHD? Do I have a diagnosed disorder? It is more of how you perceive yourself. And I think that plays a big part in the success of this program, and then also success of fitness overall, because people can have the tendencies. So when you look at those big umbrellas of, say for instance, OCD, antisocial behaviors, bipolarism, a lot of us have some of those tendencies. So if I think about the fact that I am a perfectionist, but here I am in a setting to where I can't do things like I want to do it anymore, then that's going to play a part in my ability to get better, because I'm going to have those mental roadblocks, right? I can't do it the way I could, so what's the point of doing it? And then you do have the component of depression that you'll see a lot of times that are factors in, which is a mental health disorder, but it sets in a lot of times with patients that have had trauma to the body, a cardiac arrest, or any other type of major trauma, because it changes their ability to live how they were living before. It is a trauma to the mental health, because for people that have had heart attacks, they almost left this earth. And so it is very hard. Sometimes those mental tendencies or those roadblocks that you set in your head unconsciously can cause it to be difficult for you to progress when it comes to fitness. Sometimes it is from the standpoint of diet, which can be perpetual, because I'm not able to get out of my own way because of the diet, which can lead to the obesity, which can lead to the diabetes, which can lead to the heart disease, that type of thing. So yes, mental health plays a big part in whether or not that person can progress and can cause challenges with fitness and just their progression through the rehab program in itself.
Thank you for joining us today and taking the time to learn more about heart disease. You can go online for more information about Your Heart Rocks or the American Heart Association.